Something is coming, and most people aren't ready. Michelle Trachtenberg's voice trembles with urgency as she delivers a chilling warning, one that could change everything. A great shaking is about to unfold, an event so massive that it will divide, expose, and awaken millions. "I've seen things I can't even speak of," she says, "but I can tell you this. Time is running out." She speaks of judgment beginning inside the church, of secret global deals that will reshape the world order, of a sudden event that could change your life within 24 hours. And most terrifying of all, many will be caught completely off guard. This is not a drill. This is not a conspiracy. This is real. Michelle pleads for people to wake up, spiritually, financially, and physically. The world is shifting, and those who are not prepared will suffer the consequences. But will you listen, or will you ignore the warning until it's too late? Before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed. Many people watch these videos but aren't subscribed, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Turn on notifications and stay ready. Now, let's begin. Michelle's voice grows heavier as she delivers the next part of her revelation. The shaking won't just happen in the world, it will start in the church. She warns that a great separation is coming, one that will expose those who claim to follow God but have compromised His truth. There are pastors standing behind pulpits who have sold their souls for power, influence, and wealth, she declares, and God is about to bring them down. The judgment won't be vague or distant. It will be swift, undeniable, and devastating. She describes seeing churches emptying overnight, entire ministries crumbling under the weight of their hidden sins. Scandals that have been covered for years will come to light. Leaders who have misled their congregations will face divine justice, not just in eternity, but in the here and now. Judgment begins in the house of God, she reminds, quoting 1 Peter 4:17. The divide won't just be between believers and unbelievers, it will be between those who are truly devoted and those who have treated faith as a convenience. You won't be able to fake it anymore. You'll have to choose. And for those who have placed their trust in religious institutions rather than in God Himself, the coming days will be deeply unsettling. But Michelle insists, this is necessary. This is mercy disguised as judgment. Because only through the shaking will the true bride of Christ rise. Michelle takes a deep breath before speaking again. This part, she says, is one of the most difficult to share. What's happening behind closed doors will soon be revealed to the whole world. See, she warns of a hidden war, not just one of armies and weapons, but of power, deception, and control. She describes nations teetering on the edge of collapse, their leaders desperately clinging to authority, while secretly making deals that will shake the very foundation of global stability. Economic turmoil is coming, she states plainly, and many will be caught unprepared. Cedar. The financial markets, the supply chains, the systems people trust without question, all of them are more fragile than they appear. She speaks of alliances forming in the shadows, of corrupt leaders betraying their own people, of a new order rising while the world is distracted by lesser crises. The enemy is playing a long game, she warns, and most are blind to it. But this isn't just about governments and economies. Michelle insists that believers must open their eyes to the spiritual battle behind it all. This isn't just politics. This is about control over nations, over resources, over you. And then she gives a chilling statement. There will be an event, sudden, unexpected, that will change everything overnight. She doesn't specify, only that it will be a catalyst for massive shifts in power. When it happens, remember this warning, because by then, it will be too late to prepare. Michelle's voice softens, but her urgency remains. This is not the time to rely on others for your faith, she warns. You need to hear from God yourself. In a world drowning in noise, political debates, prophetic predictions, endless distractions, she pleads for believers to turn their focus back to the source, direct communion with God. She speaks of fasting, not as a ritual, but as a way to break free from the grip of worldly dependencies. Your spirit needs to be sharper than ever. The days ahead will require discernment beyond human logic. Prayer, she says, must go beyond routine words. It's not about saying the right things. It's about aligning your heart with heaven. Michelle warns against blind trust in any human voice, even those claiming divine insight. Too many are chasing prophets instead of chasing God. She describes people running from one message to another, seeking comfort in predictions instead of preparing their own hearts. The time for borrowed faith is over. You must know His voice for yourself. She urges believers to build a daily habit of seeking God, not just in crisis, but in the stillness of the morning, in the quiet moments of the night. Because when the shaking begins, the ones who stand will be those who have already built their foundation on Him. And then she gives a final plea. Start now. Do not wait. Your ability to hear Him in the days ahead may mean the difference between wisdom and deception, between safety and disaster. Michelle closes her eyes for a moment before continuing. When she speaks again, her tone is different, lower, heavier. Some of you will wake up one morning, she says, and by nightfall, everything you thought was stable will be gone. She reminds her audience of the morning of September 11th, 2001. The world seemed normal, predictable, until it wasn't. The pandemic of 2020. One moment, life was routine. The next, fear and uncertainty took over the planet. History has shown us that the greatest shifts happen suddenly, and Michelle warns that another one is coming. I don't know the exact day, she admits, but I know this. When it begins, it will be too late to prepare. The financial markets will react violently. Borders will close. Panic will spread faster than information. And the ones who have ignored the warnings will be the most vulnerable. She describes a vision. People glued to their screens, watching in disbelief as breaking news flashes across every channel. Some will be terrified. Others will be in denial. But a few will recognize it for what it is. The great shaking has begun. And then she asks the most haunting question of all. If tomorrow was the day, would you be ready? Michelle exhales sharply before delivering her next warning. Many of you are being set up for a fall, she says, and you don't even see it coming. She isn't talking about just the economy. She's talking about a spiritual deception woven into financial promises. She exposes a dangerous trend. Self-proclaimed prophets assuring believers that certain investments, currencies, or financial strategies are divinely inspired. They tell you, God showed me this will make you rich. This is His provision for the last days. But Michelle shakes her head. No, that's not how God works. She warns that many are chasing false security, putting their faith in markets, in systems, in so-called prophetic financial advice, instead of in God's provision. Do you think the enemy doesn't know how to manipulate wealth? How to use greed and desperation to lure even the faithful? And then her voice drops. A collapse is coming. She doesn't specify how or when, but she is clear. Many who believe they are financially secure will wake up to find their wealth gone. And the ones who listen to the wrong voices, they'll be the most devastated. Her plea is simple. Stop looking for shortcuts. Seek wisdom. Seek discernment. And if you're investing in anything, ask God first. Because in the coming days, only He will be a sure foundation. Michelle leans in, her gaze intense. Listen to me carefully, she says. You need to prepare. Not tomorrow, not next month. Now. She warns. Michelle leans in, her gaze sharp. "Listen to me carefully," she says. "You need to prepare, not tomorrow, not next month, now." She warns that many are waiting for a clearer sign before taking action. But when that sign comes, it will be too late. The warnings have already been given. You need to ask God, "Lord, how should I prepare?" Each person will receive different instructions, but one thing is certain: preparation is not optional. Michelle speaks about physical safety, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Where do you live? Do you have what you need if things stop functioning for a while? Can you protect your family? She's not calling for panic. She's calling for wisdom. She also addresses financial preparation. This doesn't mean hoarding cash or jumping into trendy investments. It means asking God what to do with your resources. For some, it may mean getting out of debt. For others, it may mean learning a new skill. But for everyone, the most important preparation is spiritual, learning to depend on God above any earthly system. And then, Michelle delivers a chilling statement. There will come a time when those who mocked the idea of preparation will run to the prepared, begging for help. She pleads with her audience. Be on the right side of that moment. Be wise. Be ready. Time is running out. Michelle's tone shifts. There is both hope and sorrow in her voice. A great awakening is coming, she says. Millions will have their eyes opened. They will see the truth, and they will run to God like never before. But then her expression darkens. At the same time, a great falling away will take place. She describes a vision. Churches overflowing with people desperate for answers, crying out for salvation. God's presence will be undeniable, she says. Miracles, healings, radical transformations. It will be a move of God like we've never seen before. But right alongside this revival, something else will be happening. There will be those who walk away, she warns. People who once stood firm in their faith will turn their backs, not because they don't believe anymore, but because they never truly did. The shaking will expose the foundations of every heart. Some will cling to God tighter than ever. Others will say, "This is too much. This is not what I signed up for." Michelle emphasizes that the falling away won't be slow. It will be sudden. Leaders will renounce their faith. Entire congregations will dissolve. People who once preached truth will start preaching compromise, and many won't even realize they've drifted. Because deception doesn't feel like deception when you're in the middle of it. She pleads with her listeners. Examine your heart now. Decide where you stand before the shaking begins, because when the time comes, you will not have the luxury of being lukewarm. Michelle closes her eyes for a moment before speaking. This part, she says, is critical. There is a war happening in the spirit realm over the destiny of nations. And what happens next depends on prayer. She urges believers to intercede for their leaders, whether they agree with them or not. Some of them are making decisions that will determine the course of history, she warns, and many are being influenced by forces they don't even recognize. The battle is not just political, it is spiritual. Then, Michelle speaks a name that instantly divides opinions: Donald Trump. Like him or not, he is at the center of something much bigger than politics, she states. There are things happening around him that the public will never know. Battles being fought in places most will never see. She insists that, regardless of personal views, believers must pray for wisdom and discernment over Trump's decisions. The enemy wants to use him for destruction. God wants to use him for something greater. The question is, who will win that battle? Michelle warns that world events are accelerating, and certain leaders, especially in the U.S., hold keys that will either bring protection or chaos. Do not be deceived by what you see in the media. Pray for God's will to be done, not man's agenda. And then she pleads, if we do not pray now, We may regret it later. Michelle exhales deeply. There's a hesitation in her voice now, a weight pressing on her words. There are things I have seen, things I cannot say. She pauses, looking directly into the camera, not because I don't want to, but because I shouldn't. She describes dreams, visions, moments of divine revelation that left her shaken. Some things are too dangerous to speak openly. If I were to reveal them now, some wouldn't believe me. Others would panic. Michelle hints at leaders who know what's coming, but remain silent. Agendas unfolding behind the scenes. Events already set in motion that cannot be stopped. Certain powers do not want these things exposed, she warns. And the ones who have spoken out, many of them are no longer here. Her voice drops to almost a whisper. There are warnings I can only share in private. Some things are meant for those who are truly listening. And then, a final chilling statement. If you think what I've shared so far is intense, just know it's only the surface. She leans back, her expression unreadable. The rest is between me and God. Michelle's final words linger in the air. The shaking is coming. The question is, will you be ready? Some will awaken, others will fall away. The choice is yours. But one thing is certain, ignoring the warning will not stop what's coming. What do you think? Do you believe we're about to witness a great shaking? Let me know in the comments. Have you had any dreams, visions, or personal revelations about this? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next. Because trust me, this is just the beginning.